I'm Eric Ryman. I'm Executive Director of the Banner Alzheimer's Institute and Director of the Arizona Alzheimer's Consortium.
I'm Dr. Frank Longo. I'm the Chairman of the Department of Neurology and Neurological Sciences at Stanford.
I'm Michael Weiner. I'm the Principal Investigator of the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative.
And it's us against Alzheimer's.
It's us against Alzheimer's.
It's us against Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's disease affects 1 in 2 people over the age of 85, 1 in 10 over 65.
The biggest problem with Alzheimer's disease is like the biggest problem with cancer. We need effective drugs, effective treatments that work. We don't have effective treatments that work right now.
In addition to its devastating toll on afflicted patients, it takes a horrendous toll on family members who often feel frustrated, helpless, physically and emotionally exhausted. Over half of primary family caregivers become clinically depressed. In addition to the research now going on in Alzheimer's disease, I think there's a fundamental need to better address the needs, both the medical and non-medical needs of patients and families in a more fundamental way.
I have a sister who's 1 year younger than me, and she was born with a condition called cerebral palsy, where there's some brain damage at about the time of birth. And so she was in a wheelchair. And so when I was a child, I would go with my mother to my sister's doctor's appointments, and I thought that as I waited in the waiting room, she would come out walking. And that was my frustration as a child. Why couldn't the doctors fix my sister's brain and make her walk? And so at a very early age, the idea came to me of doing research on the brain so that people could have their brains work normally, and I've been stuck with that ever since.
While Alzheimer's is a devastating problem, we believe that there's hope on the horizon. There's been great progress made in the scientific understanding of this disease, the detection and tracking of brain changes that occur before people develop memory and thinking problems, and the portfolio of treatments that now need to be tested. What we need to do now is to start testing the most promising treatments so that those people who are worried about their risk of developing this disorder in the future don't have to worry about it by the time they reach that age.
Basically, I do MRI imaging of Alzheimer's disease, and the overall goal of my work is to find better methods to diagnose Alzheimer's disease, to monitor its progression, and especially to find treatments which slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease and prevent dementia.
I have the opportunity to peer inside the head, study the inner workings of the brain, and investigate how different parts of the brain work in concert like members of a symphony.
Well, what I do is I take care of patients, primarily those that have memory loss or that are worried about dementia. I also run a research program where we're looking to create what we hope might be among the first effective therapeutics for Alzheimer's disease and the related dementias. And I also oversee the department where teaching is very important. I support the other research in our department and, of course, oversee patient care.
What I'm really excited about is the opportunity to marry research and care, to provide help and hope along the way by helping to address families' needs today while we're trying to work on this problem for the future.
I think all of us take for granted our health and our different systems. I think the brain is perhaps the most mysterious area in terms of understanding what it does, so we take it for granted even more. But once we start to lose some of our cognitive capabilities, of course, we very much appreciate what our brain does for us.
The brain is a remarkable organ. I am in awe of how the brain works. In the last few years, we have new tools with brain imaging techniques to understand the inner workings of the brain, and we have new genetics tools to understand the book of life. As we continue to learn more, we continue to be more amazed by the sophisticated way in which this blueprint for life and the different brain cells and brain regions work together to orchestrate behaviors. It's really remarkable.
The ability to light up the brain, to see the brain with imaging, both MRI imaging and PET scanning, has totally transformed all studies of the brain, especially studies of Alzheimer's disease.
In my opinion, the study of the human mind and brain is the final frontier in science and medicine. We know more about the outer reaches of the universe than we do about the inner reaches of the mind and brain, and we finally have the tools with which we can explore this in an important way, and hopefully in the process make a really important contribution to people who are afflicted with behavioral disorders.
It's just unbelievable now what science can do and what we can see and the advances we can make, because the brain is the last frontier in medical science. And there's years of work to be done to understand just how the normal brain functions, what happens to people as they get older, and then there's Alzheimer's disease and all kinds of mental disorders. So what we call neuroscience is the most rapidly growing area of scientific work today.
You know, when I think about what is so exciting about science and medicine, I think about every time we get to ask a new question that hasn't been addressed before. Every time we get to harness the research tools and bring the talented people together to address that problem in a more fundamental way. Every time we have a chance to make an important discovery, and again, maybe just make a difference in other people's lives.
The Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative is the largest single project ever funded in the world for Alzheimer's disease. The National Institutes of Health, NIH, and the pharmaceutical industry have teamed up together in an unprecedented way to provide $140 million for the study of Alzheimer's disease. We study normal people, people with mild impairments, and people with dementia from Alzheimer's disease, with all kinds of scanning and blood tests and clinical tests. And basically what we've found is ways to detect the disease at an early stage reliably and predict who's going to develop Alzheimer's disease in the future. And we found better ways to map progression. So the big impact of our study is that when clinical trials now are done to test out treatments for Alzheimer's disease, they're using the methods that were developed by our ADNI project.
In my opinion, the roadblock to finding an effective way to end Alzheimer's disease may not be in the discovery of promising new treatments. There's been a lot of progress made in that regard. But the roadblock might be in how to find out which of these treatments work as soon as possible without having to wait in a prevention study to see who goes on to develop memory and thinking problems. We believe that now is the time to launch the era of Alzheimer's prevention research, to provide both the means and public policies needed to find out which of these treatments might reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease or maybe, just maybe, completely prevent it.
The good news is that there are hundreds of treatments now being tested on humans. So never before have we had, just 10 years ago, there was nothing being tested on humans to prevent the progression of Alzheimer's disease. Now there are hundreds of different kinds of treatments. Some of them still in the animal stage, but many are now being in human testing. And some of them have not worked, but there's many more in the pipeline, and it's going to take time, but there's going to be something that works.
Yes, 10 years from now, I think it'll be gradual steps. I think in medicine there's rarely one dramatic step. Our goal is to prevent diseases like Alzheimer's disease, and I think the first steps will be a partial prevention. Maybe we can delay by a year, by 3 years, by 5 years, and at some point prevent it altogether. So it'll be one step at a time.
Well, I love to discover things. I love to solve problems, and that's the essence of science. Science is all about discovery, and the real excitement of science is when you figure out something new, when you discover something new, especially when it has a big impact. But most of the time, the discoveries are small, kind of incremental. Successful scientists set out to find something really important, like a cure for cancer or a cure for Alzheimer's disease, and then they go step by step, making small discoveries on the way. And sometimes we're fortunate to really hit it big, but it's an extremely exciting and satisfying life.
No one person can do it all. Science, the human body is much too complicated. To bring everybody together and have it fit, that's where we make an advance in the field to come up with new treatments.
The wonderful thing about working in science is you get to interact every day with very smart people who are curious and who are excited about what they're doing, and that makes it very rewarding.
When I think of my best moment in medicine, it's virtually every time we get to ask a new question. Every time we get to bring people together who can address that problem in a way that I could not by myself. Every time we have an opportunity to make a new discovery and provide hope for the future, those are all my best times.
Best moment in medicine is when you can really give something to a patient or the family of a patient and get the appreciation back from the patient.
My best moment in medicine in terms of research is finding out that your idea might be right, that it might work, that we can actually change the course of a disease from our ideas. I can't explain what a thrill that is.
I would say if you're shying away from science, take another look at it. You might not be looking at it in the right way. Science is so huge that what you've seen, there's many other aspects of it. Science is the ability to discover something, but you have to have curiosity. Not everyone has curiosity. If you don't have curiosity, if you don't want to discover things, and if you don't want to help people, then maybe you shouldn't go into science.
I believe that Alzheimer's disease is an unacceptable problem. It takes an unacceptable toll on patients, an intolerable toll on families. It'll take a financially overwhelming toll on us all by the time today's young adults become senior citizens. I believe that we have an opportunity now to find demonstrably effective treatments to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease and just possibly completely prevent it sooner than most people think.